Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented to you by PucksandPitchforks.com. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from North Jersey, South Jersey. Title of the podcast, Goats and Titles. Yeah, because we've got three extraordinary guests coming on tonight, and we're going to be breaking some records here as well on this fine podcast. We've got Kristen Shilton of ESPN coming on shortly, and also soon to be a great friend of the podcast, Larry Brooks of the New York Post. He's got lots of things to say, been a writing machine recently. And did you like those warm-up jerseys yesterday at the game that the Devils were wearing? Especially that picture of Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes together during warm-ups. Yes, we have the infamous BackHanded Devil on as well to talk a little bit about that. Nick, it's going to be a big, next few weeks. I mean, we got our big shindig with Arlette tomorrow at Stagehouse Tavern at 1099 Route 22 in Mountainside, New Jersey. Starts at 6 p.m. for Game Day Live and Devils After Dark viewing party, all smushed in with music by Arlette. I mean, I'm going to be working around the clock on this podcast.
You're a busy man.
I am.
But when I texted you, because I was like, listen, man, we got a big one coming. I need your full focus on Wednesday, because Kristen Shilton, somebody I've circled for a while, I was like, I got to find the right time to get her on the podcast. And I looked at the schedule. I was like, listen, ESPN's doing the hockey coverage. The Devils are going to be on ESPN. They've been on ESPN. They were on this past Saturday for the Bruins game. It's going to be top of mind. Let's get Kristen on now. Let's get that high-quality analysis from one of the really good ESPN reporters. I got to hand it to ESPN is that when they got into hockey, they already had Greg Wyshynski and Emily Kaplan just doing great work for them. But they had Kristen Shilton, who was a Toronto Maple Leafs beat reporter for TSN before this. And worked for Fox Sports before that. I believe it was Fox Sports. So she's a long history, but you take a beat reporter and then you put them on the national beat. It doesn't always click like that, but Kristen's just done a phenomenal job. Her and Ryan Clark have really done a really good job working in tandem on some things, and then they both get these really awesome profile pieces. So you love to see that. I'm really excited to kind of talk to her about what she thinks of the Devils. I may call her out a little bit, Sam. I may have to call her out a little bit.
I thought we were supposed to be making friends here.
Sometimes you just got to call a spade because she had the Devils ranked 24th to start the season. So we got to ask her what happened. But besides that,
a lot of people did, though.
Listen, Sam, her most recent rankings had them third. So more than makes up for it. But we're going to ask, what happened? What caused us to go from, because, I want to ask her about that ceiling. We thought the ceiling, and honestly, Sam, I thought the ceiling too was go for a wild card spot. You thought Carolina's going to get a spot, and then 5 of the Rangers, Penguins, Capitals, Islanders, and Devils are going to fight for those other spots. And a lot of people thought, the Flyers with John Tortorella were going to be competitive. Nobody thought they were going to make the playoffs, but they were going to be competitive. And a lot of people thought Columbus, adding Johnny Gaudreau, was going to be competitive. They ended up being 2 of the worst teams in the league. You forget going into this season, we were saying the Metropolitan Division is by far the best division. And
it's hockey karma. That's what it is.
And you're looking at it, and you thought, Sam, how long did we think it was going to be 5 teams out of the Metro, and that was it? 5 teams out of the Metro, Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Game over. Here comes Florida, who looks like the hottest team in the league. And now you got to question, if you're the Devils, do I want that Metropolitan Division crown? Do I want to win the Metro? Because then you get Florida. Would you rather play Florida? Would you rather play New York? Florida, the reigning President's Trophy winner, they obviously are going to lose at the Boston this year by probably like 50 points. But do you want to play that team? Still has Barkov, still has Bobrovsky, still has just talent oozing. And then they added Matthew Tkachuk, who, if Florida wasn't where it was, and Connor McDavid didn't have the season that he had, Tkachuk might be second in MVP voting.
I'll tell you what, to tell you the truth, either way, you're going to have to go through you're going to have some adversity. Me personally, careful what you ask for when you play the Rangers. Shesterkin is.
I don't want to play the Rangers.
I don't want to play any team, to be honest. But every team is good at this point, and I think really, if you want to control your own destiny, because that's beyond your control, if you're going into the playoffs just winning them, and you can clinch the Metropolitan Division, that gives you'll be oozing with confidence. But if you lose tomorrow, say if Carolina loses and the Devils lose tomorrow, that's the worst case scenario. Now you got to play the Rangers. Yes, you'll have home ice advantage, but to me, it's all about momentum and have it snowball and have that feel good, thing going into the playoffs. Now, let me tell you something. When they hung with the Boston Bruins. They lost 2-1. Okay, the Boston. It was a humbling experience, but at the same time, it showed that, hey, the Devils can hang with them. This is an elite team that they're hanging with. So, honestly, Nick.
The greatest team of all time, according to points.
Yeah. And I think all I'm expecting tomorrow is, look, if the Devils stay healthy tomorrow, I'll be happy. Win or lose, whether they get the division or not, I hope they do. Just because, look, it's a sense of accomplishment and a good feeling. It doesn't matter if you're playing Florida or the Rangers. They're going to be tough teams. But more than likely, it would be funny if the Devils played Florida and a lot of Ranger fans bought those tickets. And they're just like, just wasted.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad. I think a lot of truth has come out in that controversy, and that might have been a little overstated. What I think it really was a Rangers fan speaking out of turn. I don't think that Devils. I hope. Maybe I'm just gullible, Sam. Maybe I just still love this franchise, so I hope they wouldn't go to Rangers fans first. It's one thing if you're not selling the tickets.
Well,
then you got to make a buck.
Well, we could talk about it a little bit later because I got to get our next guest on. But all I have to say to that is, Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment has shown me nothing but money first before the fans. That's just the way I feel. I mean, quadrupling ticket prices, just like that for round one is a little. Yeah, and you know what? And the people that are selling these tickets, like I've said all along, they're not from Jersey. So why do they care? That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I have to be careful. I have to be careful what I say, but I'm sorry, Nick, but that's how I feel. Anyway, I'll get our guest.
Go get our guest. And here's the thing: is that I look at the ticket prices, and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to spend $500 to sit in the nosebleeds. It's just not for me. Not for me. I like watching from home. I love going to the games. I love being in the arena. But I got Dan Rice there. Dan Rice, who we're going to get on the show soon. He's probably going to be in our playoff preview if he's available. But he's in the arena all the time. So he can kind of be he's my Sergey Brylin. And I'm going to tell him that next time he's on the show. That Dan Rice is my Sergey Brylin. My eyes in the sky. So I kind of get that separate perspective that I usually get from being in the arena. But I also, I just, I don't see it's just a lot. It's a lot, especially when you don't know it's the Rangers. Like, the Florida Panthers don't travel well. They don't even go to their own arena. It's probably cheaper, guys, if they play the Panthers, to fly to Miami, head to Sunrise, and check out the Panthers. And I don't even know, is it still BB&T Stadium? I don't think so. I think it's something else, something weird. But to go all the way to Sunrise to catch the Florida Panthers in Florida, and then you get to be in Florida. I guess it's a little hot right now, but I still love being in Florida. And yeah, it's just it's a little steep. I'm not gonna lie, but you get to see Jack Hughes. I can't wait to talk to Kristen about Jack Hughes specifically. I want to know Jack Hughes. We got in 10 minutes and we haven't brought this up. Jack Hughes broke the scoring record. He broke Patrick Eliash's record. Was anybody else upset they did it on an empty net? I didn't love that, especially since he got so close so many times. Didn't love that it was on an empty net, but it was a goal. So that helped. Got to celebrate the goal. Got to celebrate the points record. Now I need 3 points tomorrow night. Score 3 points against the Capitals. Get Jack Hughes to 100 points because that is what we want for Hughes. Man, you had the debut of Luke Hughes, but Sam's back, so we're gonna get to that in a moment. Let's welcome Sam back. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Nick. Just manning the controls right now. Our next guest, you can find her on ESPN.com, ESPN Digital. First time on, her name is Kristen Shilton. You can find her on Twitter at Kristen_Shilton. Kristen, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really well. How are you guys doing?
I mean, we're doing great after that theoretical beatdown of the Buffalo Sabres last night. That was a fun game to watch.
It certainly was, especially if you're a Devils fan. I'm sure you enjoyed that quite a bit. Maybe less so if you're a Sabres fan, but hard not to be transfixed by one Jack Hughes and what he has been able to do in this season, that's for sure.
And Kristen, I'm just going to consider this a favor to Sabres fans that they don't have to be stressed today thinking they could still make the playoffs tomorrow. We tried to help them. Sometimes you just got to take the old Yeller to the backyard. That's just what we were doing to the Sabres.
Well, that was very kind of you then. I guess if you're looking, you find the glass half full, guys. You always got to find the silver lining, right?
I'm trying. There has been so many years that we were eliminated in February that I've had to find a lot of silver linings in this. But you mentioned Jack Hughes, so I do want to kind of jump right into that. He broke the record last night on an empty net goal, and this kid is 21 years old, and he now already owns the franchise records for points in the season. Just put up he's got 97 points. He has a chance for 100, which I want to point out that you did predict in your original power rankings that he could hit 100 points. So seeing that you had that idea that could be him and seeing what he's done that season, I'm kind of curious from your national spectrum, what do you think his ceiling is? Is this a guy who can be a top 5 player? Is this a guy who could be a top 3 player? Like, where is Jack Hughes in the NHL hierarchy?
You know, I don't know if we can put a ceiling on Jack Hughes yet because we're still figuring out the same way he is who he's going to be as a long-term NHL player. I mean, this is only the beginning for him. He's only scratching the surface of the player that he will be and the contributions that he is going to make for this franchise for many years to come. And there will continue to be an evolution of Jack Hughes. The exciting part is that you're seeing it's almost like, to me, Hughes is like that quintessential, let's call him like Gen Z NHL star, where he just came into the league with this. But it's true. It's like it's a different breed. It's a different generation. It's a different mentality. And even, he comes in as a rookie and there was expectations and maybe he didn't live up to what everyone thought he would be right away. But Jack Hughes, in my perspective at least, has always stayed true to who he is and who he was. He has bravado and confidence. There's a little cockiness in the best way to what he does. That's what the best players have. And they often develop that, but it's like Hughes started out that way, of just knowing I'm going to be a 100-point guy less than 5 years into my career. I'm going to be a difference maker for a team that has been desperate for that type of generational talent for a long time. And it just seems like he just knew it, and he was able to really translate, I think, that confidence into what he's done since his rookie season. And this year was like an announcement of, hey, as good as you thought maybe I could be, maybe I can be even better than that. I just love the way that Hughes, you see it even like last night. There's just times where you could just dump the puck in and chase it up, but he really wants to carry play. He wants to be the guy. He's such a good skater, and he has that offensive ability. He wants to be the guy who's making it happen. He's not afraid. He's fearless when it comes to those big moments or making big plays. Obviously, he can shoot the puck and he can score, and he can do all of the things that you want from him offensively. And that's where, the idea of can he be a top 3 scorer in this league, I absolutely think that. I think that that's what's possible for him. But on the other side of that, as much as you can praise his offensive game, there is also a defensive component that, over time he will have to develop, and that's going to make him an even better two-way player. But at this point, if we're just looking at him as a scorer, like I wouldn't put a cap on it and say, oh, he'll hit this point or he'll hit this mark. Obviously, I believe that there would be something special from him this year, and he's absolutely been able to earn that and put that kind of season together. But it's cliche. I mean, defensive-minded players, the ones that can do both, it really does create more offense. And you look at what the numbers that he's put up, they're on par with where Austin Matthews was, Matt Barzal, Steven Stamkos, even with Connor McDavid, like where they were at similar places in their careers. It's hard to say that, Jack Hughes can't be as similarly unstoppable as any other great player has been.
So I have to ask, just a follow-up to this, just because you covered the Toronto Maple Leafs for so long, so you're so well-versed in these supreme players and it not always translating to the playoffs, do you feel like there could be some issues there?
I would say that it wouldn't surprise me if there were, because playoffs, and they're just a different animal. They're a different animal for every player, but especially these young guys that, like Jack Hughes does, their bread and butter is scoring. And there's just no open ice. There's no way to just ring up, 5 points a game or 2 points a game, or 2 goals a game. It just doesn't happen. And when that doesn't happen, the confidence of a player who relies on that ability to score can just get rattled. And so it really comes down to that mental toughness, that mental, it's almost like that sandpaper in your head that I think that an Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, William Nylander, those guys had to build up from the disappointment. Will that happen to Hughes? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But it wouldn't surprise me, and I also don't think it should worry anyone if it does happen, because obviously it's just a different beast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, I'm kind of like, I feel like we're playing with house money. And that kind of like transitions into our next question, is just, you wrote in your power rankings, you kind of gave every team a word in yours and Ryan Clark's power rankings. And the word you used for the Devils was, I have it written down here, astonishing. So I went back. I was curious, and I went back to see where you and Ryan had the Devils ranked to start the season. And I don't want to say I was surprised, but I was like, okay, when I saw that they were 24th to start the season. And, best case scenario you and Ryan were talking about, was fighting for a wild card spot. And while that was obviously always on the table, they far exceeded those expectations. So when looking at the league as a whole, are you considering the Devils the biggest surprise this season?
I really thought in September that if the Devils could be playing meaningful hockey in March and April, that in itself would be a win. That would be pretty good considering where they were. Let's go back. They were one of the worst teams in the league last year, right? We're talking about a historic turnaround from, what was it, 63 points to, I think they have 110 now. That's
correct. Yeah.
Massive. And no one, certainly not me, would have predicted that kind of a transition from one year to the next. So are they the biggest surprise to me? Absolutely. Like I thought that they could be, they could be in the mix, that they could make some noise, they could do some good things, but I would not have even let's say you look back to those two, the Fire Lindy chance. Even then, I thought, oh no, like it's happening again. Where the Devils, there's this bright future that just never comes to fruition, and then they go on the run that they did, and won games the way that they did, getting contributions across the board. I thought that Nico Hischier was such a surprise as well, and how he came on this year. Jesper Bratt playing the way he did, Vanacek really solidifying in goal, like all those things in and of themselves individually were, is what collectively made New Jersey so surprising, was that it all clicked. You never know if it's going to. You don't know if all cylinders are going to fire at the same time when you make changes or when you are counting on players that haven't blossomed yet. You just don't know. And then it seemed like it just happened all at once for New Jersey, and everything just kind of came together for them in a really unexpected way. So they are a surprise. But the more that I watched them and the more that you look back on even last year, it was injuries and it was goaltending. And that was two things that, the Devils had this year. They had pretty good health and they had really good goaltending. So they really fixed the problem. And that's, a lot of teams don't do that. They just don't, make the moves or push the right buttons or take the risks to make the big changes. And I think the way that we've seen the Devils grow and evolve in such a short period of time and the results that they've had, I think it's a real testament to just sticking with, your belief not only in your core that eventually Hischier and Bratt and those guys would all come together at once, but that I really just thought it was surprising the way that, they just stayed the course and it paid off. And I would really think that will translate as well into an exciting playoffs for them.
And let's talk about the playoffs, because as a fan, I've tried, I've covered this team for 6 years now. I've always tried, at least in the last 3 years, I've tried to take off the fan hat and be real analytical with what I think of this team. I still look at it in rose-colored glasses, but the one thing I can't do myself, because it's been so long since the Devils have been in the playoffs, I did cover the Lightning the last 3 years from Tampa, so I kind of got an idea of what a championship team looks like. But even with Tampa, they had to take their lumps before they kind of went on those runs. Now, with that being said, what do you think about this Devils team as far as contender status? You had them third in your power rankings. That tells me they're one of the top contenders in the league. What do you think? Can this team win the Stanley Cup this year?
I would say any team that makes the playoffs can win the Cup. I think that it's hard to make the postseason as it is, as we're seeing in these final days for veteran teams even to get into the postseason. It's hard. And when we're talking about a team like the Devils that have been really dominant in a lot of respects, wire to wire, obviously hiccups here and there and bad stretches, but hey, 82 games, what are you going to do? Are they a legitimate playoff contender to me? Absolutely. It really, to me, hinges, though, also on the first round, because it's going to come fast and furious, this different brand of hockey that a lot of these guys are not familiar with. And I've seen it before with the Leafs, who obviously, having covered them for as long as I did, I know that you can look great in the regular season and everybody can be feeling good, and you go into a series and it gets away from you. You have one bad night, one bad game, and it rattles confidence. Or, as I mentioned earlier, a player like Hughes that is so used to being offensively, so significant, can't play the role he's used to. And how does that affect chemistry? How does it affect the way lines are being rolled, and we haven't even mentioned Timo Meyer. Like I don't think he's gotten the results maybe that he deserves from what he has produced since coming to New Jersey. Now, is that going to change in a postseason series? What is he able to do? How does him coming on or catching fire potentially, how does that change things? So I think it comes down to how do you weather that first round, which is hard for every team. What level of goaltending are you getting? Does that hold up for you? And then they've been good defensively. They're top 10, in every category you'd want to be good in the regular season. It just, that can, as we've seen in seasons past, that can mean nothing when you get to the playoffs. It really comes down to, I think, for New Jersey to be on a long playoff run here, they've just got to stick to what they know, and that's playing with confidence. It's playing with a kind of swagger of, like, we can win in a lot of different ways. We've seen New Jersey win on nights this season where they haven't been at their best, and they've still been able to find a way, and they do have a good depth of scoring. They do have that cup-winning experience in their dressing room. So I do see them absolutely as a contender, but it really just comes down to executing for a week. Get through the first round, and from there, it actually weirdly, you settle in, right? You can do it. Yeah. So I think a lot hinges on this first opponent that they'll have coming up.
So before I let you go, I do kind of want to give you your flowers and kind of, we've had a lot of really good guests on, but I've always been like really enthralled by your journey, just kind of seeing somebody who made these massive jumps and is just killing it wherever she goes. Like I knew of you when you were covering the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously TSN is such a brand that, it's just going to come up in your feed. And so you kind of pay attention. Then when I saw you got the job at ESPN, I was like, okay, that's an interesting move, going from a beat reporter to a national reporter. There's just it's such a different lifestyle. It's such a different, you have to look at the game just completely differently. I just want to kind of give you a minute just to like talk about that journey. What was it like to make that transition from a Canadian broadcaster to, I know they're the worldwide leader in sports, but ESPN's more of an American broadcaster. What was it like to make that transition?
Yeah, it was definitely a big decision for me, and it was, I wouldn't sugarcoat it. Like it was really hard to move on from TSN. I had always kind of thought of myself as a beat reporter. I'd thought of myself of coming home and being in Toronto. And when I had that opportunity for 5 years, it was really a dream come true. But at the same time, when ESPN approached me, it felt like that move you have to make in order to know that you can do it, that you're not just a reporter that can cover one team, but you're a reporter that's capable of, storytelling and being involved with the league as a whole. And it felt like a progression I needed to make. And my whole career has been about taking the risk. I have moved a lot. I've always kind of gone with my intuition and what I felt like was going to challenge me the most. And if there was one thing I knew, it was that going to ESPN would be just a massive challenge in a new way. And it has been. It's been the hardest job I've ever had, but it's also in a lot of ways been the most rewarding one, because I get to watch and interact with, just hundreds of players, and there's bigger fan bases that I've gotten to know. I've had a chance to, get into some of the issues around the league too, which is really interesting. It's something that I think I always wondered if I could do it, if I would have, the ability to do it well. And so it is definitely different being based in Toronto and then going to the States, obviously a lot. And it's just a massive undertaking. Playoffs is going to be crazy like it always is. But I have had zero regrets from the moment I made the choice. And it's just been, it was really the fact that ESPN allowed me to stay in Toronto made it easier. But I'm just grateful for the opportunity and, for the many, nights of little sleep ahead as we get into the postseason. It was really fun last year covering so many different teams for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that just for anybody out there, because we do get asked, like, how do you get into this? How do you get jobs in this? It's like, just know you got to make the scary decision. You got to put yourself out there, or you got to make a leap. You got to do something scary, but it leads to something like this. And Kristen, I can't praise you enough. You've done such an incredible job in your years at ESPN. I look forward to more. I do want to give you a sec. Just what do you got coming up? What should Devils fans be looking for? Playoff previews. What is coming up on ESPN.com from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan and I have some playoff previews coming out. I believe those are dropping on the 16th. So every team with a preview of, what we can kind of expect from them. So that's coming. I also will have a piece on the Boston Bruins and the alleged President's Trophy curse coming. That should be dropping, I believe, next Friday, so in a week. And then I will have a piece a couple days later on the Maple Leafs as well. So plenty that you can look forward to. And I know my colleague Greg Wyshynski will have everyone covered with everything to do with the Devils in the first round. So if you're not already following him, and I'm sure that your followers are, definitely make sure that you're keeping an eye on what Greg's going to be producing, because it'll be good.
Greg's been on the podcast. Arda is always in the hockey realm, and he's he loves coming on and talking. We love talking to the ESPN people because there's such passion there with your team. You guys are doing a great job. Look forward to the coverage. We'll definitely tweet out those pieces, the playoff preview. We look forward to it. Hopefully you're nice to us now that you've been on here. But Kristen, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again soon.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kristen. That is Kristen Shilton of ESPN. You can find her on Twitter at Kristen_Shilton. She was great, Nick.
That was phenomenal. Love
phenomenal interview.
Here's the thing, and every time we have the ESPN people on, they always just knock it out of the park. Sometimes I don't do a great job. I don't give them their justice, but we worked on that. We're doing better now. But yeah, no, Kristen, that was phenomenal. Everything she said, it was great. I love hearing other people talk about Jack Hughes, the national reporter. Because it's one thing to hear Ryan Novo and James Nichols and Dan Rice and all the beat reporters, Christy and Alex and all the people that we have on all the time. It's one thing to talk to them. Or you and me, Sam, we watch every game. It's one thing to talk to us, who watches Jack Hughes on a daily basis, sees everything. And we love this man with all of our heart because he's come in and he's turned this franchise around. He's the number 1 overall pick. That actually made sense. He's killing it. There's no one in that draft. As I love Nico Hischier. Wouldn't trade him for Makar straight up right now because I just love the way that this team is fit. But there's always going to be the argument of Pettersson. There's always going to be the argument of Makar. There's always going to be the argument, there's a couple of guys in that draft that are always going to come up. Heiskanen. But in 2019, there's no one you want besides Hughes. Nobody comes close. And having that means so much. And then you have these national reporters. I just went on a tangent. Didn't even get to my point. My point is you have the national reporters on who are watching McDavid, who are watching Jason Robertson, who are watching every great player, Kachuk, who are watching Stützle. All these great players at all different points of their career, and they all just pine over Jack Hughes and how good he's playing and how well he's doing this season. And it's a sight to see, Sam. I love talking to these national reporters and seeing how excited they are about Jack Hughes and seeing that there is no ceiling, like she said. And that's something I've never actually thought of, putting that into words, is that there is no ceiling. There's the famous Michael Jordan saying, the ceiling is the roof. It makes no sense, but when you think about it, you're like, okay, it just means, the ceiling is unlimited. It could be anything. If Jack Hughes scored 150 points in 3 years, are you – I don't think it's likely, but I'm not, I would never say that's impossible. I would say it's impossible that like Tomas Tatar is going to score 150 points, but it's not impossible that Jack Hughes is going to do it. Right? That is in the realm of possibility. There is a universe in which Jack Hughes scores 150 points.
I think it can happen. I mean, I was predicting he would be a 60-60 player one day. It's got to be the perfect storm of a season. I mean, with the Devils,
he's 43 goals this season.
Yeah, and he was hurt part of the season, and I can foresee it happening in his prime. And when you have a defense, I think it's going to be a lot of these goals that Jack Hughes is going to be getting are a lot of cherry picking goals, because with that first outlet pass with that kind of defense that they have right now that can play on the offensive side, those outlet passes to Jack Hughes one-on-one, it's done. I think that's how he's going to get there, if he's going to get 120 points, 130 points a season.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that you need the consistency, you need the health for Hughes. He had that one little injury this year, and I don't mind those. Like, what was he out, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's fine. He could be out 2 weeks. That I'm not going to lose my mind if he's out 2 weeks a season. As long as he kind of avoids those injuries that linger. This one seemed like it lingered a little bit. He kind of lost his stride up until, the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
I still think, and that's the thing, that's the more impressive thing, is he's broken the Devils' points record while missing time. Like, I'm pretty sure Elias didn't miss time that season, right? He played a full 82-game season. Do you remember?
He pretty much close to it.
Maybe he missed a game or something, but he definitely didn't miss 2 weeks. He missed very minimal time. You look at the Devils, and that was the impressive part about the Taylor Hall season. And I wrote an article a couple days ago about the greatest offensive seasons in Devils history, and I still have Taylor Hall as number one, because he missed like 3 weeks, and I believe he missed like, I think he only played like 74 games. Maybe I'm crazy there, but he had 93 points, won the MVP, and dragged the team into the playoffs. Like, kicking and screaming, I'm not missing the playoffs again. This was a guy that's never played a playoff game, very famously at that time, and he's dragging his team kicking and screaming to the postseason, making sure he gets that off his resume, gets a playoff win, really helps the team in the postseason. It was just the most impressive offensive performance I had ever seen. So I ranked that number one. But I know that you got to go and make a phone call, so I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep on my rant. I still think Taylor Hall had the best offensive season. I actually ranked this season from Taylor Hall third, because this team is so stacked offensively. And I get that Hughes, for a lot of the season, has been carrying his offense. Jesper Bratt was up and down. I mean, when I say up and down, it's all up here. But, he wasn't completely consistent like Hughes was. He had Eric Holla famously on his line, who could not score with Jack Hughes. Made no sense. Empty net after empty net after empty net. He just kept missing it. And Jack Hughes still put up this ridiculous number of points. He was on pace for 50 goals for most of the season before that injury. He could have gotten somewhere in like the 110 to 115 range for points, but that injury slowed him down. It is what it is. He can't cry over spilt milk, but I am rooting hard for Jack Hughes to get to 100 points. Speaking of all time, we got Larry Brooks of the New York Post coming on the podcast right now. He's written an article, Best Devils Players of All Time, commemorating 40 years of Devils hockey with the 40 greatest Devils of all time. I have a lot of questions. Controversial list, to say the least. It's Larry Brooks. Larry Brooks and controversy go hand in hand. But I got questions. I got questions for Larry. I want to know what his thought process is. I want to know where he's kind of coming from and what inspired the list. And what I really want to know is, who is it hard to keep off? Because I've been teasing this list. I've been working on it. It's actually built. My list is built. Greatest of all time. We're actually doing 50. greatest of all time is built, but it needs a little nips and tucks, and I need to write a lot of the copy. So the list is done. So I can kind of compare lists. There's a couple of players that I was confused. Larry, what's going on? I definitely want to ask him about Brodeur, because Brodeur is not number one. And that one, when I made my list, it seemed like it was just the obvious choice. So the obvious choice isn't always the right choice. He might be right with who he chose. He looks at it from a different lens. Obviously he covers more the Rangers than the Devils, but he's always given the Devils some coverage. And from the New York Post, like, I'll take that all day. I'll take New York Post coverage all day. So excited to get Larry on. Before we get him on, though, Sam's working the phones right now trying to get Larry on. The all-time list is always an interesting concept. I remember Chris Ryan wrote I think it was 35 for the 35th anniversary, and you kind of look at these lists, and you're always going to have to keep somebody off. Even my list is 50 people. There's people I'm keeping off the list because it's just how it works, and I feel like, recency bias always seems to kind of win the day when it comes to those lists, because you're seeing them now. You can talk yourself into it. You're more familiar with what they've done, and there's also more ways to cover things now. You're more apt to understand. Like, if you missed a game in 1987, then you missed the game. Hold on one sec. Let me just make sure. Just making sure that we got. I gotta talk to Sam for a second. Make sure that we got everything that we need. Sam's working the phone. These phone lines are going to be the death of us, guys. Sam, are we still working on that, Sam? You're muted.
Sorry, Nick. We can't get a hold of him.
Okay.
Yep. Still working on it.
Okay, that's fine. Well, you keep working on it. I'll keep working it out back here. No worries. Yeah. So, if that's the case, I'm going to jump back to Jack Hughes and just kind of this historic season that he's having. The one thing that we didn't talk about is Luke. Luke Hughes made his NHL debut, and he looked all right. I hate the 11-7. I do. But I kind of knew it was going to happen when you're going to add Luke Hughes into the lineup, because you want to shelter him. You kind of want to put him in the right situation. I'm actually surprised he didn't get any power play time. I think if the Devils kind of built that lead a little bit earlier, they might have tried him on a power play. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember seeing him on the power play. That would have been a really good time to kind of get him some, easy minutes where he's kind of in his element. You got to imagine that him and Simon Nemec, that is where they're going to play together. So you kind of want him to get like the experience now. Nemec has a lot of professional experience on the power play because he's playing for Utica right now. Utica, they're playing tonight. They had a rough start. I know they were down 2-0. They're fighting for a playoff spot. That is a crazy division, the North in the AHL. And Utica just, after the historic season that Utica had last year, to kind of see it go the way it did this year, I don't love that. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't love that Utica dropped the way it did, because, especially now, because you got Holtz back on the team, Dawes and Schmid are your goaltender tandem. I don't understand why they have fallen the way they have. But they, it is what it is. It's let me see if I could find the Utica score. This is terrible podcasting. This is going to be so over by the time that people listen to this. Okay, so Laval is up. That's something. Okay, so the Cruncher down. The Cruncher up on the Comets 3-1. Just went into the second intermission, so the Comets, they need to bounce back. It looks like they gave up a penalty shot, and yeah, it's just so we're still not okay. So it sounds like there's a little bit of an issue with Larry. Let me just send a message. Sam, you could come back and talk for a second while I send this message. Or maybe Sam, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, we're never doing phone lines again. It's always a mess. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, Utica, you wanted Nemitz to get. I want Nemitz to get playoff atmosphere. I want him to get kind of used to American playoffs, even at CHL. It's completely different. I get it. Not the same at all, but at least you get kind of the pressure of playoff hockey in a North American ice sheet, a North American atmosphere. And then, you could kind of, since you got Luke Hughes here with New Jersey, you could kind of let Nemitz's season just kind of end. And you don't really, if you want him to travel with the team for the playoffs and just kind of be around the team, that's completely fine. I think that's perfectly okay. But if you want him to just kind of go home and kind of reset, I think that's okay too. It's been a long time since he's been away from his home country for so long. I think that you can you kind of have to play it by ear. You kind of have to check the kid's mindset. But I think both would be good. I think both are fine. If he gets in the playoffs with Utica, let him play the Utica playoffs, and then kind of let him make the decision. Do you want to travel with the team and kind of chill with Devils, or do you want to go home and kind of reset? Either way, I think you're set up for success as long as you let him make that decision. But Utica has to make the playoffs. You got to get Utica in the playoffs. This 3-1 deficit to Syracuse is just disheartening. I don't know off the top of my head exactly where they are as far as standings. I know that it's them, Syracuse, and I believe them, Syracuse, and Laval. Okay, so if Laval loses, the Comets clinch a playoff spot. Laval is currently beating Toronto, which is the best team in that division. Not looking great for the Comets. I still think they have games this weekend, though, to kind of help them out. You got to make the playoffs. You have to. Even if you get torn apart by Toronto in the first round. But they just beat Toronto last weekend. The Comets are such a frustrating team. Anyway, we're looking ahead to the playoffs. Tomorrow night, what are you looking for as a Devils fan? Tomorrow night, you have 3 points for Jack Hughes. You could break the franchise record for wins. That's really cool. There's a lot going on with that game. It's an away game, which kind of stinks. You kind of wish it was a home game and get people ready for the playoffs, but it's not. It is what it is. One stat that Charlie Borges Jr. of Pucks and Pitchforks shared today is that every single year since Alex Ovechkin entered the league, Alex Ovechkin has had more goals than any one player on the Devils. Every single year, even the year of Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall got 39 goals that year. Ovechkin had more. And right now, Jack Hughes is leading Ovechkin by 1 goal. So that streak can finally break. What is it, 2005? I think 2005 is the year that Ovechkin came into the league. So that's 18 years? Has it really been that long? It's 2005, 2006. So we're talking about 17, 18 years that one player has had more goals than any one Devils player. That's wild. That's wild to think about. But there's a reason why he's close to the goals record. I want Ovechkin to sit tomorrow. I don't like having that sit over our heads. And for Ovechkin to have that kind of dominance over us, I think that the Devils just – I'm so glad that the Devils kind of had a leg up on Washington this year, because after how well the Washington Capitals have played against the Devils, it was time to turn the tide. Sam is back. Sam, what's the word?
Still can't get a hold of Larry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
We tried.
No worries. I'll talk for a sec, and I'll send a message, and we'll see.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you guys were talking about because I was on the phone.
We were talking. We went from Utica to Luke Hughes to what do you want to see tomorrow night? I talked about the stat that Alex Ovechkin has never he's scored more goals than any one Devils player every single year since entering the league. There's never been a Devils player who scored more than Alex Ovechkin has in a season. So but right now Jack Hughes has 1 goal more than Alex Ovechkin. So that's what
You know what? You know what I want to see because I think Kristen really alluded to it. It's look. First off, look where this team has come from. They went from just a great preseason, pretty good preseason, to going 0-2, fire Lindy Chance, and then from there they went on that tear, that 13-game winning streak, that eventually became controversial with the Toronto Maple Leafs winning that game. And then, the Devils went on a little slump in December, which, again, that was their first real big challenge, and they got themselves out of that funk and that slump. And they almost annexed Canada by beating every Canadian team on Canadian soil, except for that last game against the Winnipeg Jets, which really was the second half of a back-to-back. Whoever did the NHL scheduling didn't do the Devils any favors there. I know I'm a biased Homer fan, but, that's how I feel. But there's lots of things that the Devils have accomplished, this season, and, nobody would have expected it. But the other thing, too, so even Tom Fitzgerald admitted they're ahead of their timeline. And I think a lot of that had to do with probably going 0-1 and 0-2 in the season because, remember, on pucksandpitchforks.com, I wrote that the Devils, they hate losing more than they do love winning. And I think that's carried them and served them very well, Nick, during this season. And I hope it continues. I don't think they're satisfied right now because the losing was so bad the last 3 years, and COVID, and add everything else, that now they're if you look at, they look like a team right now. They don't look like 20 individuals. They look like they have each other's backs. You see all the scrums, what Timo Meier did to Pasternak at the end there, with playing to the last second, to the last breath, sending a message that the liquor, Marchand, he's a repeat offender. We played that video over and over and over again about the Marcus Johansson injury that was suffered.
Guy was never the same after that hit, by the way.
Yeah.
Never the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. No, I mean, and that was the funny thing. We haven't been on since that game. It was honestly hilarious that Boston fans tried to complain about Timo Meier hitting David Pasternak at the end.
Yep.
First of all, I don't truly think that Meier knew there was that little time on the clock. There's a desperation there. It's a 1-goal game. Nico Hischier just made a fantastic play to keep the puck out of the empty net. An insane play to keep the puck out of the empty net to give the Devils a chance. And I don't understand how you see the hit on Michael McLeod. And do I think that he went for the head? I think that the way he hit him, he had to know that the head was possible. Can I say it like that? Is that okay? Am I allowed to say it without,
let's put it this way. He tried not to make it that obvious, but everybody knew what exactly he was trying to do.
I mean, you can't. If you're Tom Wilson, if you're Matt Cook, if you're Brad Marchand, if you're, Ryan Reeves, if you're Jacob Trouba, you have a reputation for a reason. It is what it is.
Yep.
You have a reputation for a reason, and every single time you do this, you no longer get the benefit of the doubt. It's over. You don't get it. But did Marchand even get a hearing for that?
I don't think he got anything.
Yeah. So the league is okay with it. They've made it a point to make it okay.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
But then if you're going to go after Timo Meyer I mean, it wasn't even that hard of a hit. Pasternak was mad. Okay. They kind of ruined their celebration. Like, they should have been celebrating breaking the record, but instead they're mad about a hit.
Well, it's kind of like that artificial infuriation, like when the Panthers went after Nico.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to get themselves all charged up because, you know what? The Devils did the right thing. I mean, the Devils, Meyer, I'll tell you, I don't think Meyer purposely sent a message, but Meyer was playing to the last second. And,
yeah.
And it aggravated Boston. And it should have. And you know what? If these two teams were to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, there's going to be a continuation of that. But at least the Devils, psychologically, they're not going to be pushed around anymore. A few years ago, I mean, this is why we, oh my goodness, and the YouTube Live invented Beefalytics. Because why? Well, that's the intangibles. And the Devils right now, if they don't intimidate you, they're definitely going to try to outskate you. And they're just too fast. And teams have found, there was a blueprint. If you remember when the Devils played Nashville, and Nashville beat the Devils, it was late November, around that time, there was the blueprint. And then suddenly the Devils weren't playing that well in December. And then they played Boston a couple times towards the end of December and then just eventually snapped out of it. So,
what are you gonna do, Sam?
No,
you gotta win games. You gotta win games in the playoffs. You gotta wait. Let me ask you this, Sam, because this is something I've been struggling with.
Let me get this call.
Take the call, and then I will. Oh, I hear the call, Sam. I hear the call. So mute yourself. I lost my train of thought. Oh, what I was going to ask Sam is if he felt like this season was already a success. No matter what happens in the playoffs, is this a successful season for New Jersey Devils hockey? And I made the argument a couple weeks ago that you can't say it is now. Like, yes, if I told you in September that the Devils were going to be within 1 point of winning the division going into the last game of the season, and if I asked you, do you consider this a successful season? Every single person, every Devils fan would say yes. Sam, that was quick.
Oh, it was quick. We got our next guest. This is going to be it's going to be a historical moment because it will be his second appearance on this podcast, and he's one of my favorites, or maybe the favorite. His name is Larry Brooks. He works for the New York Post. Love his columns, slap shots. Find him on Twitter at NYP_Brooksy. Larry, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, Larry.
It's been a big time year for your guys. That's for sure. A terrific.
It's been exciting.
Exciting. Listen, they're an exciting team. They're a good team. I don't think a Devils fan could ask for more from this regular season. I just don't.
Well, before we get into why, because we have you on, because you did the top 40 Devils of all time ranking. But before I give you that, would you say that if the Devils lose in the first round of the playoffs, do you still consider this a successful season from the Devils?
Oh, without a doubt. Listen, if they were to lose a 1-8, or a 1, I guess it would be a 1-7. If they lose the wild card, it would be a very disappointing result in the playoffs. But I don't think it would. Impact the perception of this season. I mean, they've just taken a giant step forward, and it's not a one-shot deal. It's not as if they packed their team with veterans and then guys. Rentals just to make the playoffs. I mean, this is a team on the come, on the rise. Honestly, they're going to finish first or second place in their division. So, I mean, honestly, it's been a spectacular year for them. Just a spectacular year. And listen, just the fact that the Devils fans get to watch Jack Hughes every night is something special. Honestly, it's just special. A superstar, in the making, if not already made. Just a brilliant player, and he, a player who's worth the price of admission by himself. So, I don't think you could ask for too much more from this regular season. What they do in the playoffs, we'll see, but I think they're set up to be a very good playoff team too.
So let's use that to transition. Jack Hughes, pretty high on your list already, of the top 40 players of all time.
Yeah.
He's only 3 years. Well, I guess this is his fourth year, and the first year was bad. But you had him, I believe, in the top 15.
Right. I had him, I think, 15th. Yeah.
So quickly tell me what kind of went into that decision, and do you expect him to take over number one eventually?
Take over number one? If he's on a team that wins 3 cups and is 3 or 4 cups and is the most important player on those teams, perhaps. I'll
take that.
I wouldn't project that at this point, but listen. The reason I put him 15 is because I think he is, the most talented player in franchise history. Just sheer talent. Probably skates better than anyone. And look what he's doing in his 4th year in the league. Now, there's look, you could put him 22nd, you could put him 24th, and I would understand it. But to me, he's just such a dazzling player that I wanted to get him. I wanted to signify that I thought he was so special. So that's why I have him 15.
And that makes sense. I mean, you don't break the franchise record every year, so it is a huge,
that's right, and no, that's right. That's right. And I had done this before he got to 97, obviously, but he's broken the franchise record. So I don't. Yeah, again, you can quibble. You can say no, it's too soon. He should be in the 20s. Oh, okay. This is obviously a subjective list. It's a personal list, and you know what about this list, and I also did one for the Islanders. Their top 50 that is running now. These aren't rankings that I did off reputation, off stats, off analytics. I've seen every one of these players play, and I've seen every one of these players play a lot. So it's just, it's my impression of them. It's my opinion of them. It's my ranking of them. I worked for the Devils for 10 years in the early days, and I covered the Devils, and now I watch them a little bit from, across the river. So, this is just I think it's an educated. I think it's an educated ranking. Obviously people can disagree, and everyone has an opinion, but it's not one where I went to reference material and I check things out, obviously, but it's not one where I did this by expected goals for and things like that. This was players. Every player on this list, every player who's played for the Devils, I've seen. For better or worse.
Yeah, there's a lot of worse lately, but the one that kind of stuck out to me, because I had him high, and it's kind of for this reason. Like I saw him play, I saw what he did at his best, and I'm kind of judging him on that. And that's Taylor Hall. And he's a controversial player for the Devils.
Yeah.
A lot of people just have a bad taste in their mouth, similar to Zach Parise, but a little bit more with Hall, just because of how it ended. The hope that he couldn't make the playoffs for most of the time of his here. The one time he did, he won MVP.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: you talk about it's an opinion. There's a lot of does the way that it ended for Taylor Hall, does that impact his ranking at all?
It did. It did. If I remember correctly, he really only had one full season, right? I mean, he was hurt. He got hurt the first year where he had a brilliant first half. And then he had the big year, and then he was hurt again. And then his fourth year, his relationship with the franchise, his relationship with the fans. I wasn't there enough to really understand why the dynamic shifted so quickly on him, because it was 17-18 they made the playoffs, and he won the Hart. I mean, imagine the only player in franchise history to win the Hart Trophy. A team that won the Cup 3 times, went to the finals 2 other times, finished in first place, regularly during the aughts of 2000s, and he's the only guy who has won the Hart. Brodeur never won it. Stevens never won it. Eliash never won it. Niedermeyer never won it. None of them even came close. And here was Taylor Hall. And I voted for Taylor Hall that year. I had a vote that year, and I voted for Taylor Hall. But his impact was so brief. I mean, and then he became almost a negative impact. Created almost a negative impact his final year. So he was here for a very short time. I did weigh the way it ended, but he just, you want to talk about Jack Hughes, Jack Hughes' 1 year has been equal to Taylor Hall's 1 year. And I'll tell you what, if it weren't for Connor McDavid, I would consider voting for him for the Hart. I think it's a team effort, obviously, but he's the best player on the team, and I think his skill separates him and it separates the team on a lot of nights. So, I thought Taylor Hall was going to be here for 8 or 10 years. I thought they were going to sign him to an extension. I thought he would be a top 5 guy, but it was just his stay was too brief, and the end certainly did have an impact on the way I ranked him. Yeah,
that's interesting. Now, I always like to hear kind of, because I think I told you I'm doing a list of my own that's probably going to go after the Devils are out of the playoffs, just this kind of fodder. But I had a lot of trouble keeping certain players off the list. You kind of talk yourselves into them, and I wonder how people are going to see.
Yeah.
Was there a player, or was there multiple players who kind of stuck out for you? It was really hard to keep them off the list.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't have it in front of me, but I think the honorable mention guys, when you're talking about guys who are 39 and 40, really what's the difference between the guy who's 39 and the guy who's 42 maybe? So, the guys who are, who I named on honorable mention, and again, I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry. I'm sure they could have been 40. I mean, there were guys I thought I wanted to get in. I wanted to get Chris Terrarian. And, someone could say, well, he never, he was only their number 1 in the early 90s, and, but he played a major role in 94 when they went to the conference finals against the Rangers. He came back. I think he's, 3rd or 4th in all-time wins. So I wanted to get Chris Terrarian on. That was just a personal preference of mine. And but cause I always give weight to guys who are on championship teams. I do. I think it's important. And he was, he was Brodeur's backup in then 95. So I do. I give weight to guys who have big moments, and more than compilers, and I give weight to guys who are on championship teams. And Terrari winning the 3 games in Boston Garden in the 94 series against Boston after they had fallen behind 2-0. They lost the first 2 games at the Meadowlands, and then they went to the Boston Garden, which is a very difficult place to play. But Terrari had starred at Boston Garden when he was at Providence, so. They went to him for game 3, and he wins game 3, he wins game 4. They come back for game 5 at the Meadowlands, and Brodeur pitches a shutout. They win the game to go up 3-2, and they go back to Boston, and they go back to Terreri, and and they close it out. So, that's one of the reasons. Just to give you an idea of my thought process there, I give greater weight to these moments than to a player who might have had 5 better years. Objectively 5 better years. So that's the way I did it.
There's no way that a coach could get away with that now, right? There's no way a coach could play one goalie at home games and one in away games, right? That would never.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you have a guy who had the track record that Terreri did, and the other thing too back then, I know it was 29 years ago. It was kind of amazing, but it seems like kind of yesterday to me. That they had just come off the 7-game first round against Buffalo, and the game 6 was 4 overtimes, and they lose 1-0, and then they come back 2 nights later and played game 7 and won 2-1, and then they played on the Sunday afternoon against Boston. So there might have been some fatigue also with Marty and so that's why they went to Terreri. But yeah, it would take a coach with some security, I think, to make that kind of a move. Yeah.
And just for your sake, the honorable mentions that you listed were Aaron Broughton, Bobby Carpenter, Jesper Bratt, which is interesting to me, Brian Ralston, Andy Green, and Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider, another guy, obviously doesn't have the playoff chops, but man, was he good for those years that he was good.
Yeah, no, listen, he was terrific for the couple of years. The one guy who I had the most trouble, now that you mention it, the guy I had the most trouble leaving off was Aaron Broughton. Aaron Broughton has, when I was doing some reference on this, Aaron Broughton is in their top, I think, 8, 10 of maybe goals or points, and he had some big time seasons. But he played for a lot of really bad teams in the 80s, and he had a terrific year the year they made the playoffs in 87, 88. Mm-hmm. He had a big time season that year, and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I really wrestled with him. He was the toughest choice for me, and but there were a lot of goals scored in the 80s, and so I kind of discounted his numbers, but if there had been a 41, it would have been Aaron, and I really enjoyed it. I was PR director and then vice president of communications when he was there. I never covered him, so I just knew him, as a fellow Devil, and I enjoyed Aaron Broughton a lot. I enjoyed Neil a lot too, and Neil I have very high on the list for a guy who basically played half season for them. Played another year, didn't it was a miserable season, but again that there's an example of a big moment, big moments in contributing to championships where I have Neil Broughton very, very high.
Yeah, and it's all about perception, because I think I have Adam Henrique probably higher than a lot of people just because of the moment, right? That one moment is gonna lift them up.
Yeah.
I would be bemused to not talk about number 1 and how it's not Martin Brodeur. And I just kind of want to know, because when I wrote my list, that was the first thing I did. Martin Brodeur number 1. Let's figure out the rest. Right. And you've always just kind of had your own opinion and you kind of just go with it. But I'm curious, what went into that decision that you didn't make Brodeur number 1? Because you got to know it's gonna be something that people bring up when they read this list. And
I had said to someone that if there were 100 people making the list, 99 would have Brodeur. And then I actually got a text, and I don't really want to out him, but after I did the list, after it was published, I got a text from Mark Everson, who covered the Devils forever, and he said, great job or whatever, fun read. He said, a couple of quibbles, but he said, I had the same number one. So I thought that was very interesting. Here was my thought process was, listen, Marty's an all-timer. He's an all-timer. He's one of the, top 5, 6 goalies of all time, whatever, maybe 4, I'm not sure. But he's certainly in the elite goaltenders in the history of the game. But I thought that the Devils might have won with a different goaltender, and I don't think they would have won without Stevens. I just don't. And and they didn't win without Stevens. They didn't. Right. I mean, his last full year was 02-03. That was it. And 03-04, he left halfway through the season, never came back. And although they were very good for another 4 or 5 years, they had trouble. They got knocked out in the first round a couple of times. They got knocked out in the second round when I thought they shouldn't have. So I just thought that Scott Stevens was their identity. I know Marty was too. And listen, I would like to have made them 1A and 1B, kind of a cop out, the same way I did the Islanders. I mean, you separate Potvin from Bossy from Trottier. Honestly, you're talking about you're talking about the elite of the elite, and when you're talking about Brodeur and Stevens, you're talking about the elite. I think Stevens gave them their identity. This hard team, disciplined team that you're going to have to go through, and of course you're going to have to beat Brodeur at the end. But the hit on Kozlov in the '95 finals. We know what happened in 2000. The hit on Korea. He was the dominant force of their 3 Stanley Cup championships, I thought, and I don't think they win any of them without him. I just don't. And again, things change. He wasn't the only change, but they never won without him. So that's kind of what I looked at. But it was difficult. It was difficult, and I understand that on most lists Marty's going to be first, and that's fine. I mean, I would never argue with anybody. I would never try and argue with somebody. But that was the way I settled it in my mind.
So before I let you go, Larry, I wanted to ask about the current team. It looks like it's going to be Devils Rangers. I mean, I guess
I don't know. I don't know about that. I really don't know about it. I mean, I'm kind of thinking that it's going to be Rangers Carolina. I kind of think that Florida is going to beat Carolina in the final game of the season because I think they're going to need to win it in order to avoid Boston in the first round. So, and I think the Devils will win their final game. So. I kind of think that it's going to be New Jersey against who's ever 7th, and I think chances are that the Rangers are going to play Carolina, but we'll see.
So then I'll present it this way because let's hope the Devils could beat Florida, and I think the Rangers are going to beat Carolina pretty handedly because I think Carolina is just a different team. So let's say they win the second round.
I think Carolina is a different team. They've been a very different team without Svechnikov.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say they meet. They're going to meet. Let's just put it out in the air because I need a Devils-Rangers playoff series in my life. What is your initial thoughts? How do you feel about this new rivalry? Like, what are your thoughts about a Devils-Rangers playoff series?
Well, I think it would be great for the area. I think these series always are. I've been looking forward to it for a couple of months actually. So, it'd really be unfortunate if it doesn't happen in the first round. Of course, if it were to happen in the second round, it would, there would be heightened stakes. So, that would make it even, maybe more compelling. Listen, I think I think a lot will, will the Rangers be able to contain the Devils' speed? They've had a little bit of trouble with that. I mean, the Rangers like to think they're a fast team, but they're not as fast as the Devils. Rangers like to think they're a really skilled team. The Devils are probably nearly as skilled, if not as skilled. I'm not sure about New Jersey goaltending. We know, Vanacek's had a terrific year, but things sometimes change in the playoffs. Shesterkin had a pretty pedestrian first 4 months of the season, but he has ramped it up over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I think he looks like exactly the way he did last year. So I think Shesterkin would be under a lot of pressure because I think the Devils will be able to create scoring chances. A prediction I'm not prepared to make at this point, but I think it would be a terrific series. Will there be some stage fright on the Devils' part? I don't really think so. I don't. I think they're basically playing with house money, and I think they're a really loose team, and I think Lindy Ruff has been there before. So I listen. I think it would be the best thing for the area. And look, if the Islanders make it, you have the three, and there's we haven't. This would be only the fourth time in history that the three teams are in, and the first time since 2007, right? 2007. So, it'd be pretty special if all three teams are in. But I think everyone wants a Rangers Devils series. The way everyone wanted a Rangers. I'm sorry.
It'll definitely keep you and Molly will definitely be busy if all three teams make the postseason.
Yes, we will.
For sure.
Yes, yeah, we will.
But Larry, I appreciate the time you've given me. I kind of want to give you a minute just to kind of promote what you're going to be doing. You said you got that Islanders piece coming out. I'll tweet out the Devils rankings so everybody can kind of take a look at your top 40 in full on the New York Post. But do you got some playoff previews coming out? Like what's coming on the docket?
Well, we've got the Islanders top 15 will be in Thursday's paper, and then I've got the Ranger game. Final game tomorrow night against Toronto, and then we'll be doing some playoff preview, and I'll be doing a Stanley Cup preview for the league and zeroing in on the Rangers, and then I will either be off to New Jersey or off to Raleigh next week.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
With Miss Walker, and we will follow it to the end.
Sounds good, Larry. We really appreciate having you coming on. And you're a friend of the podcast now because you've done
I'm a friend of the podcast.
So we appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon, Larry.
Sure.
We look forward to it.
Sure. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, Larry. That is Larry Brooks of the New York Post coming on. Talking Devils hockey. Actually, Rangers, a little Rangers, Islanders talk, Nick.
We had a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. He is writing up a storm. I was looking at it. I was like, oh, he wrote about this a couple days ago. The Devils. There's like 6 articles up after that. Larry Brooks, man. He can rest on his laurels if he wanted to, writing as much as he has in his career. But he's killing the game. Yeah. You got to hand it to him. Controversy. There's a lot of people who are out there who are controversial and like ask stupid questions or say stupid things. But Larry Brooks, as controversial as he is, he backs it up, and he's not like rude. Like there's a couple guys, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a couple guys out there who are thought of as controversial reporters, and they come up as rude. Larry Brooks, he's salt of the earth. He's, his opinions are his opinions, and he backs them up with interesting information. And, he comes on and he talks about it. You got to give the guy all the credit in the world for that. And the ranking's interesting. He has me questioning Rodor, Sam. How did he do that?
You know what? It's funny because last night a fan came up to me, and you were talking about Larry Brooks, but a fan came up to me and was like, "You're a nicer guy than what people give you credit for. What people on Reddit says." And I was like, "Why? Because I have a difference of It's like, why? Because I have a difference of opinion? I don't know. I don't know. It's I'm a nice guy. I can have a different opinion. It's not like I have to hate you if you think that Scott Stevens is number one. You know what? He backed it up, and that's what Larry Brooks does. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame writer in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Didn't he win the Elmer Ferguson, or is that the award?
You're beyond me. You lost me there. I don't know the awards. I know the ones that I could have won when I was in journalism. I know the ones that I did win when I was in journalism. Humble brag. But I don't know a lot of the print ones.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. His name's there. Anyway, our next guest, last but not least, did you guys see those warm-up jerseys last night? And then you see the pictures of Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes that was a sweet jersey. Well, the guy that designed it, his name is BackHanded Devil on Twitter, @BackHanded Devil. He's a big Devils fan and Photoshop expert. Love his work. Honored to have him on. BackHanded Devil, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Good, guys. How are you doing tonight?
We're doing great. I think we're breaking a record for longest podcast, and we appreciate you standing by and waiting for us. But I got to say, this jersey is just – I mean, all of your designs have been phenomenal. We've had you on before to talk about them. I can't say enough about it, but how cool is it that you got a jersey, you made all these designs, and now the Devils are wearing one of your jerseys? Just how cool is that?
It's hard to describe. It was the Devils had the calling for artists to do some of the warm-up jersey for the season, but they had a very specific list on which ones that were available, and I think it was Hispanic heritage and gender equality, and I went with a gender equality design and submitted it, and obviously didn't make it, but I did get a call from the front office saying, we didn't select you for gender equality. And I was like, bummer, I was like, nice to get a call. And it's like, but we have the fan appreciation jersey that we'd like you to design. Would you be up for that? After gathering myself up off the floor, I was like, hell yeah.
So let's talk about Let's talk about the design. I mean, it's you've always been very, let me take something subtle and make it amazing. And I think you did this here. You got the New Jersey State crest. You got, the Prudential Center and the 40 patch. Kind of tell me, walk me through how you kind of came up with this design.
It was interesting, and I have to give the marketing team with the Devils so much credit. It was so easy to work with them and so professional, and the number of hoops that you have to go through and in this process. And so, to give you an idea, all the concept jerseys I've done and posted and things like that, I've taken the sports templates, Photoshop template, and, you did the arm stripes, and you did, things that make a jersey a jersey. One of the things I never realized about the warm-up jerseys are they're the practice jerseys. They're the Adidas practice jerseys. So, you got the three stripes on the torsos and, the white collar, but that's all you have to work with. So couldn't do a waist stripe, couldn't, love to throw in a waist stripe or, arm stripes, things like that. So that automatically then changes your thinking of like, okay, all right. So this is what I have to work with. And then the Devils have black, red, and white as their practice jerseys. And my initial design was a neon New Jersey in it. Mm-hmm. And it, to make it look like old school neon, and it was glowing, and I had it on the black jersey, and it looked really sharp. I was just like really pumped about it. And then like a month before the deadline, they're like, "I got some bad news. We're out of black. So your choices are." So I was just like, So they're like, you can go with red or white. And I'm like, oh my god. So I tried doing it on red, tried doing it on white, and it just looks blurry at that point. It just doesn't pop like it does on black. And so then it was just like, all right, we need to, redesign. And so much pressure for me was the overall theme of fan appreciation. I mean, this jersey is for the fans. And that was the nerve-wracking part. It was just like, how is this going to be accepted? How are people going to take this? You can't satisfy everybody. But it's just like you don't want this to bomb, So
that's We all saw a jersey that will not be named, and then the reception to that one. But I think you got a much better reception than that.
Yeah.
Go
ahead,
you go.
Oh, it's fun. Well, I have to compliment you on your shirt, by the way. That's a great shirt you got on there.
I was ready.
Excellent job. I thought, because wasn't it last year's fan appreciation where they just basically took they took the jersey and then put the logo on it, which everybody wanted in the first place. And I kind of thought that was, if you're gonna troll. That was a good troll. It
was good. Listen, sometimes the marketing team is good at trolling. I got to give them that.
Yeah. So I always thought that was funny how they did that last year. So, but like I said, it was really interesting. I think part of their decision was you just like they can have somebody else to blame it on if it bombs. So I thought, it's just, hey, we didn't do it.
Yeah. But and you're with you're in such an awesome, like the jerseys that they made this year were just so phenomenal, and last year too. Outside of jersey who will not be named, all the practice jerseys were phenomenal. Gender equality night and Pride night and Hispanic heritage and so many other. They really did a good job bringing in local artists, and it's probably one of my favorite things that they do. And just seeing them, giving you your flowers because you've been doing it for so long. You've been killing the game. I mean, how many jersey designs do you have at this point? Do you know the number?
No, I don't. I'd say around 30 to 35.
Okay. That's a ton.
Yeah, probably in there. Ton. Yeah.
And just seeing all the creativity that goes into it, and finally seeing it kind of turn into have you ever seen one of your designs turn into a real jersey before?
No, and that was the it started out as my outlet. It's just of okay, if I was doing it, how would I do it? And people picked up on it, and I can't put into words on what that means for me. And it's just amazing. And to actually have the team come to me and say, hey, I mean, after I hung up, I'm like, that means they know my work. There's somewhere in the Prudential Center, there's they've seen it and were impressed with it. And to me, that just floored me. I just could not. It was hard to fathom, and so then that just adds another layer of pressure on the whole project. And then for it to go at the last home game of the season, I had basically the whole season working on it. And so, it was crazy. You go back, you were talking earlier about, going for it in life. You have to just take that chance and do it. And there's a lot of times where you're just second guessing, third guessing, fourth guessing yourself on like, oh no, is this going to happen? And for me, luckily it worked out. The response has been amazing for it.
And that's the thing, is that it's just such a cool moment. Like when I found out, honestly, I was like, I was so happy for you, because you've been on this podcast a couple times. We've talked on social media for years now, but you almost like, and I was reading up on the profile that they did on you, and how you talked about how you started this on one social media platform, but you're like, I think my humor makes more sense on Twitter, and that's just a line. Like that's a line that you got to live with. But it's funny because like I looked at that and I was like, nah, man, I get it. Because like Pucks and Pitchforks has a Facebook account. They probably have an Instagram account that I probably should notice, but I don't use any of those because I'm a Twitter guy. My personality just works on Twitter, and we built ourselves this weird Twitter community, and like we all know each other, but we wouldn't know each other if we fell over each other. It's funny, and like kind of talk like what's that like? What's it like to have hundreds of friends that you've never met?
Exactly, and I remember the joke I made. I started out on Facebook, and I remember the joke I made. So it was 2000. It was the dark ages, so it was 2014, I think, and I made the joke of the Devils are going to sign 5 goaltenders and just do a starting rotation like in baseball and just, do it that way. And just the number of replies going of just like, that would never work. And then you're just taking up roster space. And what about the salary cap? And I'm just like, And then I discovered Twitter, and I was like, oh, it's my people. There's
sarcasm here.
Oh yeah, it's a natural resource that you cannot squander. So I love sarcasm. And
we gotta mine it as much as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the highlights of this whole thing was I went to the fan appreciation, the pregame party there in Championship Plaza, and that's where Alex from marketing gave me the jersey, and seeing it for the first time, I was like, holy crap, this is real. And I put it on, so cool. And the number of people who were drawn to it and asked me questions and, wait, are you Backhanded Devil? And it was just like, then we started, getting your Twitter handles, and you're just like, oh, yeah. And it's just, it's so easy to forget that these are real people, on the other end. And, it's just a great experience I had so many people asking me where I got that. Are they selling it in the store? It was unbelievable. One of the biggest comments I've heard is, are they going to put that on a T-shirt? I want one, so, it's been amazing. I mean, what an amazing experience.
Yeah, I mean, it just, again, it was so cool to see that it was you. Let me ask you this. What's your favorite part of the design? What's your favorite part of your jersey?
The rock and having the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
I've had both of those designs kind of for years now. I've had, I did a shirt a while ago of just the Exit 16W sports complex and then I had the profile of the Meadowlands on there. And then I had one of the rock, but the one I had of the rock had the horns coming out and the tail and everything. And, kicking through the thousands of ideas for this piece, I was just like, oh, that would be cool to kind of put those together. And then that opens up a whole new, bag of questions of, okay, so now you got the Prudential Center, you got to get that, and then you got, you can't call, the Meadowlands, and, so it's just like you have all these different things that you gotta toy with. And I really like how that shoulder patch came out, but
yeah, it looks great.
But then just having all of so one of the things they said was, when we first started, they're like, and one thing, you can't tell anybody. And I was just like, oh man,
That's the worst.
Oh, that's killing me. And but what I did is I kind of, circumvented something, and I said, coming up with different ideas. I just said on Twitter, in a couple words, what's it mean when you say you're a Devils fan? Like, what does that make you think of? What does it invoke? And I got so many responses, and that was really what was, 90% of the sayings that are on there, or were just people coming up with stuff that, have another donut, and, exit 16W, and, so many. And then it was a matter of balancing, I want to get some new stuff. So it's like, I love to hockey, and, but, throwing in the "you're next," and then the Devils chant, and Marty's better. And so it was like, going back and forth, or trying to get a nice mix of kind of everything, of this almost of 40 years of a litmus test of, what is it to be a Devils fan? So I think it worked.
Yeah, definitely. So it's got to be cool, like, because your jersey is going to be seen for literally decades, because it's the first night that Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes played together, and their first picture together on the ice. It's wearing your jersey. Have you thought about that at all?
So everything on this kept snowballing, and it was just like. Okay, I'm doing this jersey. I'm like, holy cow, I'm really doing this. And then doing that and this. And then as it got closer, it was, answer these questions for the profile and things like that. And I was just like, oh man. And then all of a sudden they said, oh, we want you to light the rock. And I was just like, what? And I'm like, are you insane? Like, I'm just, I'm just this guy on Twitter, it's like, and so went and did that. So I had to, like, I watched warm-ups, I watched them come out, and that just floored me to see, you see Luke doing the rookie lap in it, and the crowd that was down there just because of that, because of Luke. And then it was just like surreal. And then I had to take off and run up to do the Light the Rock, and went through that. And as I'm walking away, one of the photographer guys and the video guys, they're like, have you seen the picture they took down on the ice? And it's like, no. And he pulls it up on the Twitter account, and it was the one of Jack and Luke. And I was just like, oh my. And one of the guys made the comment, he's like, well, I know 2 families now that are going to have this picture hanging in their house.
Yeah, that's funny. And that's the thing, because, like, I still see the picture of Quinn and Jack together for the first time. So teammates, like, this is going to live in infamy, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, then as the NCAA tournament was going, the timeline was coming up with this game, and I was just like, no. I was just like, that's not going to work out. That he's just actually going to be playing. And then they made the Frozen Four, so that kind of pushed it out another week, and then they lost, and I was like, oh, they're gonna play him in Boston, aren't they? And they wound up flying him out there, and he practiced, and then they were like, no, he's not gonna play, and I was like, oh, no way. And then that day, Lindy broke the news that he's gonna play, and I was like, this is unbelievable. I mean, it was just not like I had enough things on my mind already. It was just like that thrown on in there. I was just like, oh.
That's wild. Now, I do want to ask you about the team. before I let you go, I want to know what are your thoughts? Like, what were your thoughts of the season, and how do you think they're going to do in the playoffs?
The season has been unbelievable. My entire family has gotten like swept up in this season. It's just because they're not dominating games. They're not coming from behind every game, although it did seem like it this year. Cliche, they're finding ways to win. And to see how much they've grown in this season, I think has been the most impressive part. You have Jack and you have Hammy playing, I don't think he gets enough credit on the national stage as far as Norris goes. And, VTech, and it's everybody's contributing. And, when Jack kind of, was nursing that injury and kind of went down, people stepped up, they'll have the team going dry. And then all of a sudden you got, Jesper Boquist, pulling the team out of the swamp and scoring. So it's just like, that's been the most impressive thing. And I think that has really built them for the playoffs. I mean, they've kind of went through their own mini playoffs for, a week at a time through this whole season. So I see them as ready for the playoffs. And, I heard you talking with Larry Brooks, and everybody wants the Devils Rangers in the playoffs. And, I would like to see that in the second round. I think that would be cooler in the second round.
Yeah,
and
let's get a win under our belts before we have to do that.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking pretty good. I'm thinking too far ahead, but I like their chances in the playoffs.
Okay, love to hear that.
Yeah, 17-18, it was just like, whoa, we're here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I see more.
And they clinched it like the second to last game in 17-18.
Yeah,
so you didn't even know if you were going to be there. You couldn't really
exactly.
enjoy it.
Yeah, and then
this is a little different.
Yeah, and I think they're ready. I think they've beaten themselves up. I think they've taken some hits. They've come back. They've learned it, and I still think you're going to see all of a sudden you're going to have this Palat guy, in the playoffs, and it's going to be like, oh, all right, this is why we signed this guy. I feel like he's just like lingering. I think he's just lingering in the weeds. I really do. I think once you hit the playoffs, these guys are going to shine. I like how they beefed up. I love how Ball has been playing. Oh man, it's been so good to see him get so good. I think Lazar is going to be another underrated, piece in the playoffs. I think, these guys are going to be tough to play against. If, they don't beat you with speed, I think they're going to have the grit of Palat, Lazar. I love Tatar's game this year. I mean, it's just, they know how to do it. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Love that. And Backhanded Devil, I kind of want to give you a minute. You've been doing such good work. I want you to be able to promote your. You still got the store, right?
Yeah. I need to look back. I need to freshen up some designs. That kind of thing. This has been a whirlwind with the fan appreciation jersey. I mean, it's just been crazy. But yeah, you can definitely find me on Twitter at Backhanded Devil. Same thing on Instagram over there. And hopefully, one thing I do want to promote is that these jerseys are up for auction now, up on the NHL.com site. And this morning, they typically went anywhere from like $300 to $800 in the past. I have a sneaky suspicion that it might be the Luke and Jack's mom and dad are jacking up the prices on that. Theirs was at like 3,700 and 4,000.
Wow. I've never seen. I've checked those because I think those are cool, and I'm like, oh, maybe one day when I'm like I get like a bonus check, I'll buy like because I always like the Pride Night one. The Pride Night one's always really awesome, and the gender equality one I think always does a really good job. So I always like let me get a bonus check and not have to pay for something, but. 37. That's wild times. $3,700. But again, it makes sense. It's the first thing that he's ever worn, and this could be a Hall of Fame career in Luke Hughes, or it could be in playing alongside his brother. So you can't.
The
do
interesting
that again.
part was it was Luke's that was higher priced right now. So
that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah,
Again, you can't do first twice. That's why it's first.
Right.
Yep. But Backhanded Devil, I appreciate you standing by for us, waiting for us tonight. It's been a long night, but it was definitely worth it. I'm so glad we got that insight in the jersey. I'm so that experience sounded amazing. But we're definitely going to have you on again soon. The next time that you're creating jerseys, maybe Adidas got word of it, or Fanatics. Who's going to do it? Whoever's going to do the jerseys next. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But maybe you're next on their list. But Backhanded Devil, appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys, keep killing it, all right?
All right, thank you. That is Backhanded Devil. Find him on Twitter at Backhanded Devil.
I love this shirt. This is a Backhanded Devil shirt. Bought it off his website. Bought a couple. I have the I Love the Hockey. I have this one. I beyond that, I bought one more, but I get it confused with Shorts Guy's design. So I'm trying to forget which one is which. But this is old, but this is quality. You know what? You know where I wear this, Sam?
Where?
Every time that I go to the airport, I wear this because I want everybody to know.
That's funny.
Wherever you're going today, you're flying with Jersey.
Ah,
you need
that's
to know.
pretty funny.
You need to know what you're dealing with. So get out of my way. Let me get to where I need to get to. Don't give me no BS. Let's get there. Sam, we did 2 hours tonight.
Yeah, unexpectedly, but 2 hours.
I did not know we were going 2 hours.
I haven't eaten dinner yet.
I apologize. You could have went for the interview. I would have been fine.
Oh no! After what happened last week, I had a monitor the entire time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair.
I'll tell you this though, Sam. We made it work. We made it happen.
Yep.
I went solo for 15 minutes straight?
Yeah.
Unexpected? Don't do that. Sorry.
Yeah, it feels weird. You kind of feel like a creep when you're calling over and over and over again.
He seemed, and that was the thing, is that we had Larry Brooks on. Great interview. I know we waited a little bit, but it was so worth the wait. He was so gracious with us. And then Kristen, that feels like it was last week, Kristen, but it was tonight.
Yep.
Such a phenomenal first time on here. Can't wait to have her on again because she's done phenomenal work. Again, you wait, you try to time these correctly and get them at the right time, and it just felt perfect, And next time we'll try to get her on when she's written about a Devils thing specifically. But she's writing so much, it's sometimes it's hard to keep track. It's hard to time these things, Sam. But are you ready for plugs, Sam? I think it's time. Everybody's ready to go to bed.
Yep.
You're ready to eat dinner. My first plug. First, I want to kind of talk about next week. Me and Sam have discussed it. We're going to wait until the schedule comes out. I don't think it makes sense that if Game 1's on Wednesday for us to do the State of the Fan Address on Wednesday. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, Sam, but just cut me off if I am. But our schedule next week. My schedule next week for the podcast is going to be fluid. We're going to try to get you some big guests. Maybe we'll do a playoff preview show. Maybe we'll accidentally do a 2-hour show again. I'm not sure what the actual plan is until the schedule comes out. Once the schedule comes out, me and Sam will discuss, but you will get a State of the Fan Address next week. We just have to be a little bit malleable with the date. That being said, go to pucksandpitchforks.com right now. We have Sam. I have so much content on pucksandpitchforks.com. I spent hours editing articles yesterday. Hours. So we got Vinny Parisi wrote his 3 players that are playing their last 2 regular season games of the Devils. It was a surprising list. It's not the obvious ones. Jeremy Goldstein had that Devils versus Rangers just breakdown of the rivalry. He went through every single playoff series that the Rangers and Devils have played before this year, which now seems a little bit more up in the air. Vinny Parisi wrote about Jack Hughes breaking the single-season scoring record. David Williams wrote about Jack Hughes' ceiling. We asked Kristen about that tonight, so that was an interesting conversation, just kind of talking about David Williams' article there. Ethan Fink, brand new writer to pucksandpitchforks.com. He ranks every possible first-round matchup. We're down to 2, right? It's either the Rangers or the Panthers. But kind of get his thoughts on the Islanders as well, who the Devils, might end up seeing at some point. Tyler Russell spoke about Luke Hughes and whether he needs to immediately be in the lineup. And then I wrote about Jack Hughes and the 5 greatest offensive seasons of all time. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. Taylor Hall was number 1. Go to pucksandpitchworks.com and read why I did not have Jack Hughes as the number 1 season. I think I have solid reasoning. Maybe I'm an idiot. Who knows? But Taylor Hall, number 1. Look at where the rest of are. There's been a lot of great offensive seasons. Did Dougie Hamilton make it for breaking the defenseman record this year? I don't know. Maybe.
Wow.
And I got more content coming out tomorrow morning. We got more content coming out tomorrow morning. I'm going to write. Yeah, I'll write the 5 players who are going to get awards votes. Sorry, the 5 Devils representatives who are going to get awards votes this season. There's going to be 5. Lots of awards votes coming.
All right. Pucksandpitchforks.com. Go there right now. I got one thing to plug. I'll be at Stagehouse Tavern, 1099, Route 22. Mountainside, New Jersey, in Union County, for Game Day Live, Devils After Dark, with Arlette, music by Arlette, viewing party. It's going to be fun. TJ the DJ will be there. TJ the DJ is the DJ of the New Jersey Devils during the game. Pete Canarosi, good friend of the podcast, also will be in attendance as well. Obviously, Arlette, it's going to be a good time. Last game of the season, Devils versus Capitals. Viewing party at Arlette's Stagehouse Tavern in Mountainside, New Jersey. That's it. Nick should hit the music.
Hit the button.
Yeah, I'm going to have to split up this podcast into, segments for your morning commute because there's a lot to digest.
You're gonna, it's. I mean, hopefully people have long commutes tomorrow because we got a long podcast coming, and it's so great from start to finish. This is a phenomenal podcast.
Yeah, thank you to Kristen Shilton for coming on the podcast. Larry Brooks as well, one of my favorites. One of these days, I'm just gonna strike up some courage and ask him. So, what are your thoughts on John Tortorella, Larry? He told us about Lou Lamoriello, that one thing that Lou did about a suit or something. I forgot that story. Good friend of the podcast, Larry Brooks. And then also Backhanded Devil. Congratulations on that beautiful jersey. He deserves it. He did an amazing job. All right, well, we're getting out of here. Dropping the podcast at midnight. Till next time, let's go Devils.